Hello and welcome to another episode of the Footy Form Guide podcast. I'm your host, Wally, joined as always by my good mate, Harro. I'm a bit croaky because I was at Gather Round. Harro, you'll be fresh as a daisy because you weren't. How are you, mate?
Mate, I am fired up. I am absolutely fired up today. So I cannot wait to get into it.
I love this. This is great, mate. Well, let's get stuck straight in with your highlights and lowlights because we had another good week. Another great
mate.
week.
Yes, again, there's plenty of positives there, Wally. And look, the Swannies, they're just the gift that keeps giving at the moment, aren't they? Absolutely love what they are doing so far. We also had a nice win on the Saints and the Hawks. And for those people following us on X, we hit 3 out of our 4 SGMs on the X page. So people definitely getting around those at the moment, and they're going quite well.
Elite. We didn't have many, but what did we miss?
We did miss a few, mate. Obviously, the best bet, I kind of gave 2 best bets last week, so I hope people back both of them. It was the Swans was the second best bet. The one we put up as the official best bet was Freo, and they needed to cover the 2-goal line, and they won by just the 6 points. So we missed out there. I think the conditions played into the Pies' hands a little bit, and actually the Pies played really well, so credit to them. The Lions also against North, we needed them to win by, I think it was about 34. They only managed to win by 26. So a couple of narrow misses as well as some good wins there, Wally.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. That's, I mean, they're not blowouts though, are they? They're pretty close. So well done as always. Now, highs and lows straight into ins and outs, and the selection table is back this week. This week's a bit of a shorter one because I don't think it needs to be a lot longer, but I'm going with my ins and outs for the week. My ins, the first one is Gather Round. Obviously, it just needs to stay in Adelaide. It annoys me that it hasn't been locked in already. It's the perfect location because you're sort of in the middle of 2 other footy states, and it's not ridiculous. I think that any other area you look for to try and hold this in any other state, it just doesn't work. Adelaide is the perfect location. Everything's in the one spot. It's really central. It's just got to stay there. So that's a massive in for me this weekend, and they've just got to do it, Harro. I don't like it hasn't been done already. The other one for me is in umpire-player relations in. Is that in this week? Are they
absolutely, yeah.
They're in. We're good with those. They're not in. So we'll go to my outs. Very, very simply. Umpire mics are out. We know that, Harro. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but give me a fucking spell. I'd love to know a little bit more about that. But tell you what else is out, Harro. But this may be a watch. Friday night doubleheaders are about to enter our world. I don't think we've really seen them much. I think we've seen maybe 1 or 2 since COVID. Friday night doubleheaders. I don't know, Harro. I don't know where this is going to land. Is this going to be there's 2 games of footy on I want to watch and you're making me choose between them? Or is this going to be, I'm just getting an extra half an hour of footy on a Friday night. I don't really care about the game, so I might have a bet in both and watch the first quarter, and then I can switch between 2 for 3 quarters and then watch the last quarter. And that way I get an extra bit of footy, 4 post-match press conference instead of 2. You're up on the couch till midnight watching it all. I don't know where it's at. I'm leaning to the former there. I think it's going to be shit. The other thing is that on what is also out, and I talk about the fixturing lot, Harro. Sunday, we saw it last week. We got 3 games. So there was time between them. You could watch them all. This week, we got 3 games on a Sunday, and they run into each other. So the first game hasn't finished until the second game starts, and then the third game doesn't start. It starts during the second game. So I'm just like, I don't understand some of this shit. But
I'll tell you, Wally, it's very inconvenient as the punter as well with these overlapping games. Like just, having to get all your bets on, or you're getting bets on while the game's in play, so you're not really concentrating on that. It's just very inconvenient. And, back to your other point, like talking about convenience, it was highly convenient that the umpire mic happened to not work in that little tiny part of the game when it works all the time. And I feel like,
did this happen last year?
No, I'm not sure, mate, but yeah, I feel like it's just so convenient that it didn't work, and a little bit conspiratorial here, mate. But do you actually think that the AFL has just hidden that little bit of audio to save their own skin?
Harro, I will say this: I'm not big on the. I don't get the tinfoil hat out, and I'm not big on the with the big companies and all of that. I mean, I've been working with Sportsbet for years, and I know their name's been mentioned a bit with footy this week. I don't really give a shit. I think that's neither here nor there. And what he decides to do with all that, they're different worlds. But like a lot of this stuff, I go, there's too much at risk for these multi-billion-dollar federations and corporations and that for them to be too much going on. But a little bit of sound goes missing. Maybe that happens. Because if it came out, it wouldn't shut the whole thing down. Do you know what I mean? When umpires have there's genuine integrity issues, that sort of affects the whole game. What I will say is this, though, is that I feel bad for Butters and Wines because the AFL, it's like they've got to protect the umpires. Why don't they protect the fucking players? At what point do we want to stand up for the players? Nobody is watching umpires, administrators, corporates, any of that. Everybody is there to watch the players and the players only. So let's just start protecting the players and not leave it all up to the AFLPA. But I don't know, mate. There's no winners this week on any of this.
Yeah, no, I feel like the AFL doesn't take the fans and the players' position ever, actually. And this is a perfect example whereby this dude, to me, he's fucked up, right? He's made a blue. Whether he misheard it or he just fucking got his knickers in a knot and got a bit upset, he changed that game by making it about himself. So I'm sorry. Have a spell, son. Have 4 weeks out, and we'll have an apology to Port Adelaide and the fans about the 50-metre penalty, and we'll just get it right, okay? And then everybody's sweet. This is all done and dusted. But they just will. They just got no idea.
Okay, do you know what I was thinking about, Harro? You remember 2 years ago, the whole Kenny Hinkley thing, and we're going to fine him 20 grand, but then the AFL, they used that to promote Gather Round. Imagine they announced the umpires this week and Nick Foot is umpiring Port Adelaide v Hawthorn under the list. You'd see 50,000 Teal fans come over for it. I'll tell you what. He cannot, I think my man Kane Corns was saying on class, no, not on footy class. He's moved on from there. Kano and I think Harro were talking about it, saying he can't umpire another Port game this year. And Kane's like, I don't think he can umpire another Port game ever while Zach Matters is playing. Because what's now happened is that the AFL, for not managing this properly, sitting him down and going, mate, listen, we need to do the right thing here by the players. They've now his job is going to be so hard to do now. He's just going to get booed, and he's going to get abuse and all this shit. So anyway, the bed has been made, as they say, Harro. The bed has been made. All right. We're going to get stuck in now because we've got some questions from our awesome community. I want to start the first one really, really quickly with a couple of futures that were suggested. So first one was Cooper Trembath Rising Star. He's currently a $6 third favourite. And the other one was Load Isaac Heaney. He's the third favourite at $10. The Isaac Heaney one was less of a question and more of an order, which I don't mind. I know we don't get too involved in the Brownlow anymore early in the season because we don't know what's going on. And we also, I've got less confidence after the weekend. But $10 when he's playing this well, and remember, he's a proven vote getter because he got a lot of votes a couple of years ago. I'll start with that one. Is $10? Is this an area? I'll ask you. Harro, let me give you 3 options. Do you want to play? Do you want to leave it alone, or you wouldn't talk someone out of betting on? Which one is it for you? You're in, you're out, or you're like, it's up to you?
Yeah. No, I'd be happy to have a little bit on Haynes at $10 to if you're trying to build a Brownlow book for the end of the year. Now, what I have enjoyed, Wally, is I love that the Footy Form Guide podcast is 6 to 12 months ahead of everybody else with a lot of this sort of stuff, because I don't know how long I've been saying Isaac Heaney's the best player in the competition for, but actually pundits are now actually getting on board and taking, it only takes him doing this for 2 years and playing like some of the best footy for people to actually jump on board. I've been saying this for 18 months.
Yeah.
So anyway, I find that interesting.
Yeah.
So anyway, happy to play that. Tremba, he went under my radar. I hadn't really picked up on how good he is actually until the weekend. And he's getting, I think with Cherry out, it's exposed him to a bit of ruck time as well as forward. And I know Clarko said they just really want him to be a forward, but geez, he's a good athlete, isn't he? And Jagger Smith is he's not living up to expectations, I don't reckon. And the market's probably got him overrated a fair bit. He's although look, he's done some nice things. I think that he's not cementing himself a spot in Carlton's midfield, and I feel like there's probably some. This market's actually coming to life. There's a few players in there that might be a bit of value because it's a bit of an open race, where perhaps after round 0 it was looking like
one horse, yeah.
So I don't mind him. He looks like a player, doesn't he?
All right. Yep, certainly does. Mate, we are. It's like I've got Swans mates that think maybe Hawthorn. I don't like Swans, but we've got mate. You know how much I love Chad Warner. You love Isaac Heaney. We're kind of Swan fanboys, really, when you think about it. We do get around them a bit.
Well,
and your man Charlie Kerner's up there now.
The Swans have always been a favourite of mine because they wear red and white, and that's my home club's colour. And as a kid, you like if your team that you play for, wears the same colours, you've just automatically sort of drawn to them. And so I've always loved the Swans, and big fans, mate.
Nice. All right, some more questions here. You mentioned Ward and Kennedy in the Hawks game as disposal options during the week, but they weren't in your final bet on X. What made you move away? Because the bet itself went well. So I'll just say first thing is not every single thing will go into an SGM. That's the other thing is that like you can have a player over under disposal line because you're not going to be diving into every single disposal, but if you've got a player over under disposal line, it's like having a total over under or a line bet on a game. So you can do that, and that can sit separately. You might have a theory on that, but traditionally with SGMs, we're going, these are the more confident, these are the more reliable ones, and they're usually taken at a lower line of, if their line's 23.5, they might be taken at 20 or even less disposals. Is that fair, Harro?
Well, with that actual bet, I just want to bring the match up again, so just to refresh myself. But the theory around the bet became that I thought the Hawks' backs were going to get quite a fill up. And when the backs fill up, it takes a few off the mids, is the way I view it anyway, a lot of the time. So you got to imagine that if Sicily's passing the ball, to aim on to Impey, well, that means really that a guy like Ward is probably a little bit less involved. And so, my thinking around that kind of changed as we got, to game day and teams were out and everything like that. So I mainly tried to pair up some of the Hawks, the Hawks defenders rather than the mids. And then to get a bit of extra value in there, I put Riley Sanders in, I think, because just he was really good value and he added to the multiplier really well. So had him in there with the Hawks defenders was the thinking around it, basically, yeah.
Yeah, very nice, man. I was in the same hotel as the Hawkies over there too. A couple of chats. It was good. Anyway.
Bit of fanboying.
Always, Harro. Unashamedly. Love them.
Love it.
I just absolutely love them, mate. Hawthorn Football Club was my first true love, Harro, and, well, may still be
any particular good blokes that you come, like, you walk away going, geez, he's a good bloke. Yeah.
All of them. Germany, he's just, I reckon he's got one of the like warmest smiles and most like he's just a beautiful person. You said in interviews and that he's great. No, mate, just a brief. I didn't actually make a dick of myself. I might have barred up Mitch Lewis to the point and said talking about how my son high fived him at the footy and that like he wouldn't give a fuck. But it was that was funny. I actually got in the lift and Barras and Sicily were there and Barras had all these papers like he was literally going to study something, which I was so on brand. And then Sicily and I go, oh, you'd be happy him and Josh came to the club. I'll help you out, blah, blah. And we get the chockies tonight. It was like, and I'm like, fuck, mate, just say yes, yeah? I'm like, because they don't want to overstate it and that, but they came out and they absolutely wiped the floor with them. All right, mate, I'll move on though. Yep. Thoughts on main key forwards not hitting the scoreboard much this year compared to last year? Jezza, Sam Darcy, Curnow, et cetera, et cetera. Seems like main guys haven't done much aside from King and Gunston. Is there a shift to more midfield scoring goals? It is an interesting one, but I think that I look at this and go, okay, for starters, Jezza probably hasn't started at 100%. Curnow and Darcy have put themselves in a position a lot. Curnow just hasn't kicked as accurately as he normally would. And also he's playing in a team that's very team first and you've got other dangerous options at his feet like Papley and Heaney. Probably haven't watched enough of Adelaide to know what's going on with Filthy. But, yeah, I mean, are you seeing a shift, Harro, or do you think it's a bit too early to tell?
Yeah, I don't think there's any real change there. It's just, as you said, a couple of the guys haven't taken their opportunities, and I think things will correct. And sooner or later, I think Charlie's had as many shots on goal as Ben King. So, I was also a bit critical of people who have been coming out against Charlie Curnow. He's played 5 games for the club. His team's on top of the ladder. And people are carrying on about he's a problem. I mean, give me a spell.
What is he? Top 5 inside 50 marks, top 5 contest 50 marks, top 5 shots on goal sort of areas or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, let's give him a spell. Come on. Yeah. All right. Our man Bobby asks, apologies if it's a repeat question. What features do you use most with Bet Sniper? Any recommendations for tips first users? Harro, if you just jumped on Bet Sniper and you want to get the most out of it this weekend, what tool would you be using?
So I would actually be clicking. So you through to the AFL prop tool, and then
AFL prop tool.
Yeah, you can click on player, and it will just bring up any individual player and a Manhattan of all of their disposals. Then you can use a few little filters, like I would filter their time on ground up to what you expect their time on ground would be, like say 70% for a normal sort of player. If they're a midfielder, you can filter out all the games where they had, say, less than 50% centre bounce attendances. Right. And then you're starting to get a bit of a relevant sample of just that one player. You can also click on any one game on their Manhattan, and it gives you a little heat map of where they're getting their disposals. That can be handy as well.
Amazing.
So I think that's a good place to start. And everyone, if you do sign up to Bet Sniper, we do have a code that people can use for a little discount. It's Footy FG Pod. And so use that, you get a little discount. And I really encourage everyone to use the Bet Sniper. It's fantastic. And they're adding features all the time as well. So that's probably the starting point, though, just to go through every player individually using the player tab in the AFL prop tool.
Yep, absolutely. That's awesome, mate. We had a question regarding trends again and how to distinguish between a trend and a coincidence. For example, Ben Keays versus Carlton has kicked 3 goals, 1, 3 goals, 3 goals, 1, 2 goals, 2, and 3 goals in the last 5 games, but that spans over 5 years. And obviously there's this clear record against Carlton. However, Ben that asked this question made a really good point. He goes, how do you support that trend? I mean, matchups would change every game and it's over a 5-year span. So what is the difference between coincidence and trend? This is a cracking question, Harro.
Yeah, so this particular one with Ben Keays, I wouldn't look at those games all being really highly correlated unless I could pair it up with some supporting evidence. And that evidence would be how are similar players to Ben Keays going against Carlton? So that's the way I would look at it. I would find other Carlton games. I would find the equivalent player to Ben Keays, and if they're consistently doing well, then you've got a marriage of two lines of thought which come together. But if you're just looking at Ben Keays individually having 5 good games against Carlton with nothing else to support it, I probably wouldn't consider that as a trend. You really need 2 pieces of evidence at least coming together to consider it a trend rather than one. It is my thoughts around it, but it is a good question.
All right. We've only got time for one more. I've got absolutely smashed with him this week. And I know if we haven't hit it up, we'll try and come back to you on social, some of the DMs, all of that. We'll do our best. Thoughts on the following role changes on the weekend? Simpkin, 68 CBA with no Finn. Richards out, so Fraser and Sanders go bananas. McGrath is a midfielder with Riddles back, so unders. Holmes and McCarthy as halfbacks. Could you do a segment every week about role changes? Look, I know that's a lot of information at first, but I just love giving this sort of stuff airtime because this is one of our community that clearly do the work, know their shit, and they're asking a really good question. So however you want to look at that, whether that's one you're happy to just flick back a response on social if you want me to bring them up game to game. But this is the sort of stuff that gets me going, Harro. I love this because this is what we set out to do at the start of this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm happy to go through those ones. The Merritt one is a good one with Ridley back there for sure. And it actually really mixed the Essendon side up, didn't it, on the weekend? And so, I think he played as a bit of a defensive mid, McGrath. I didn't see that one coming, but and he only had the 14 disposals when everything before that had been sort of, in the – let me have a look. He hadn't had anything below 21 for about 7 or 8, 9 games. And then he chucks in a 13 when he gets moved out of that role. So that's a really good one, good pickup there. With Libbo, Richards and whatnot, I'll just wait for teams on that one. And I think do be a little bit cautious with that one too. The Cats are, how they position themselves is not always clear, but it would be an obvious play if Libba and Richards are out that Sanders and Fraser are probably going to go all right. Not against easy opposition though, so factor that in. You throw the other ones at us, Wally.
Simpkin, CBAs with no Finn. So
Simpkin, I considered that on the weekend. I actually thought that they were going to put Powell into Finn O'Sullivan's role, but they went for Simpkin. And so he actually kept Will Ashcroft really quiet as well. So it looks like North are going to keep if they lose a player, somebody else is going to fill that role. So Finn O'Sullivan was out. It didn't mean that just meant someone else played the exact same role as what he was doing. And Simpkin did a good job of that. So I expect while Finn O'Sullivan's out that not much is going to change at North. And so that's a good pickup. And the other one, was there one more?
Holmes and McCarthy as halfbacks.
Right, the Holmes one, that also – so it's like the second layer effects as well. So I noticed on the weekend Holmes went to defence, and I think all it is, they put him back there for a week because they got a 5-day break into the doggies and they thought we're going to take Holmes out of the contested play and give him a bit of a softer day down at halfback so that he's fresh and ready to go for the doggies. So I expect Holmes to come back into the guts this week. What happened when Holmes went back, he took all of Tom Stewart's possessions. Tom Stewart had a really low game. And so when there are these role changes, it's not just the role change. You need to think another step ahead. How's that going to affect the next player as well? And so these were some of the things that I noticed on the weekend with those role changes. But, the Holmes one, I think Geelong were just giving him a bit of a soft week, so he's ready to go for the doggies.
Very good, Harro. Very good. And keep that sort of stuff coming. As I said, apologies we missed some this week, but there was a lot both on X and also through our DMs across multiple channels. All right, we're going to get into the footy now. Just a reminder with all of our odds, head-to-head odds are the best odds available on BetSniper when we're recording this on a Wednesday morning. And the line, we just go with our last voted bookmaker in terms of when we put out the multi-votes. Harro sometimes does a poll on that. So they're all from the same book, which makes life easier. Anyway, Carlton Collingwood kicks us off on a Thursday night, Harro. Doesn't matter how they're going. This is not often a good contest. Well, not as much in the last couple of years, but you've only got to go back to sort of, 2022, when it was an absolutely fierce battle between the two. Carlton's $2.67, Collingwood's $1.53. The line's a couple of goals. The Pies again last week, they find a way to put in a decent performance, don't they? They don't get smashed much.
No, I feel like at the moment the Pies are having to drag the game into a bit of a shit fight to be competitive, and that's what they did against Freo. And a scoreline, I think it was at 39-45. I mean, that's very, very, not great on the eye, to put it that way. But this game also has a bit of a weather watch, and I thought the Pies played the conditions in Adelaide, which are a bit wet, really well. So although they do lose one of their best wet weather players here in Sidebottom, so that's one thing against them. But I thought when it rained in the Carlton v Adelaide game, actually Carlton played well through that phase of the game as well, and they are a high stoppage, high contested side, and they don't really love the ball movement side of things. So look, if it is wet, I probably think it suits both sides maybe equally, and I probably won't really change my thoughts on that too much. Last year in this corresponding fixture, the Pies won by 17 points. I think it's fair to say the Pies aren't at that level anymore. What they were at this time last year, they've definitely dropped a little bit. And I look at their ins and outs from their team that played this game last year compared to what is playing this year. And the outs are Sidebottom, Moore, DeGoey, Myercheck and Hill, being replaced by Anderson, Steele, Steen, Parker and Allen. So you can see there, Wally, that their team on paper is good experience, basically gun players being replaced by novices, and 5 of them. I thought, well, if I'm going to do that experiment for Collingwood, so it makes sense that Collingwood aren't at the same level that they were at in previous years. Plus, they're all a year older, so that's fine. The Blues, so they lose De Koning, who is replaced by Pitnett. Now, Pitnett is actually third in the ladder of AFL player ratings for rucks this year. He's got a really high player rating, much higher than De Koning. So I'm not actually saying that that's a downgrade at this point. Curnow obviously is a great player, but he wasn't playing well, especially early last year, coming off a weekend preseason. The other guys that are out from that Carlton side are Moyer, White, Lord, and Jack Silvani, who I think is a bit of an out. Coming into the Carlton side from this game last year is Ainsworth, Dean, Evans, Newman, Jagger Smith, Florent, and Matt Carroll. So I actually think Carlton are a stronger team on paper as compared to this same fixture last year, and Collingwood are weaker. It's not so simple just to put those two things together and say, well, Carlton are now going to get closer than 17 points, because it just doesn't work like that. But I just wanted to set the groundwork for why I feel like Collingwood are coming down, and Carlton haven't really proven that they're improving at all yet, but I think that they will get on a run at some point. Now, the other thing that I consider here, the Pies are just a lot more stable. They've had less changes, and they know their game plan really well, where Carlton are, to me, they're a little bit unstable, and that's why I think they're going to get better as they play more together. I compared a couple of games that they played against similar opposition. Now, the Pies, they both played the Crows, right, in recent times. The Blues, obviously, last week, they went down to the Crows by 28 points, but it was only the 3 scoring shots, Wally, and it was at the Crows' home venue. And the Blues were missing Weeders and Haywood, who they get back this week. So that doesn't put them a huge level off the Crows. If you adjust to the home ground advantage, the player ins and outs, and it just being 3 scoring shots, it doesn't put them miles off them. The Pies actually lost to a Crows team by 4 scoring shots, but at the MCG, the 14 points, and the Crows didn't have Rankin. And the Pies are actually fielding a weaker team on paper this game compared to what they fielded against the Crows last time. Having said all that, Carlton are quite a big outsider. I think that the value is with Carlton in this one, but I don't have any faith on Carlton being able to close a game out and actually win it. I think that they'll possibly lead at different points, and I just see this happening, Wally. I would love to say Carlton can win, but I think that they'll cover the 12-point margin, the 12-point line.
Okay.
And they'll look like winning at different points, but Collingwood will just pull out some great play, and they just know how to win. And I think that Collingwood will probably just get across the line in this one. So
another heartbreaking loss, Harro, basically, is what you're saying.
I think that's where it's headed. I do have some other stuff for people who like their play bets and stuff. So let's have a look here. Yeah, Cripper, as we talk about little role changes, it's only a little one that you can't quite – like his role is officially the same, but he did a lot less time drifting forward last week and was more playing his best role, which is in and under, getting the handball out, getting those clearances and getting the other blokes on the outside going, where I think and having Hewitt out of the side enabled him to go back to doing that. And he looked a lot better and he had 29. And so I think that Cripper's one that we could back to just get the 25, which is where his line is. And him back in that role I think is a good play, especially against the Pies. Pendles, his game time went back to normal last week. And with it being a bit greasy as well, I like Pendles with a 9-day break after this one, he only has to get the 21. There's no reason to hold him back.
Like that a lot, mate. And Pendle's great in the wet. He's like Sidey. They've had two of the best wet weather footballers for combined 750 games, whatever crazy number it is. But, very, very good. All right, mate. Now, next game, we go to Friday night. We've got the two doubleheaders, as we said. We've got the doubleheader, which would be the two matches, sorry. First up, we go to Geelong, and they take on the Dogs at home. $1.56 the Cats, $2.60 Western Bulldogs. The line is 10.5 points. Dogs have been a bit shaky, Harro.
Yep. Yeah, so I've got a little rule, Wally, and it's, not to back sides off a 5-day break, which the Cats are off a 5-day break here. And I really want to break this rule. It's I'm really keen on the Cats here, mate. I feel like they've managed this quite well. I've watched them carefully. They've given guys a rest. They've not had against West Coast, they moved guys out of crucial positions who I think might be really like I was talking about with Holmes, or if they didn't get a bit of low game time against the Eagles, they got a little bit of low game time against the Hawks. So, and if there's any team that's going to be able to manage this sort of a 6-day break into a 5-day break, I think it's the Cats. Also, the Dogs, it's 3 games in 12 days for the Dogs, where it's 3 games in 11 days for the Cats. So how much of a difference is it? With the Cats looking as if they've planned for this one, with the massive home ground advantage. Blixab's his 300th game. I just don't see the Cats not showing up for this one, even with the 5-day break. So I'm going to break my rule and I'm going to back the Cats to win by that line at 10.5. As I said last week, when the Dogs' depth is getting tested, they've got issues, I believe. I believe that their top 8 or 9 players are, probably the best around, but you start removing 2 or 3 of them and they come right back to the pack. And Hawthorn showed that with a 40-point win. So, you look at that, like they both played Hawthorn within the last fortnight. The Cats lost by a point. The Dogs lost by 40 points. And now this game moves down to the Cattery. So, I'm pretty keen on the Cats here, mate. And also, like the Doggies, they don't tag. And Holmes and Smith are just in great form. And so if you want to combine a player bet with something, supporting the Cats, that's where I'd be.
Harro, one other thing, just to add a little bit of extra fuel to that thinking around both playing Hawthorn. Hawthorn got Geelong after an 18-day break, and we've seen playing twice in 18 days, 17-day break, whatever it was. And we've seen teams have been responding really well after their buys this year. And then we had the shortest break you could have from Monday to Saturday and smashed the Dogs. So realistically, the Cats had and the Dogs get Hawthorn at Adelaide Oval, which doesn't necessarily suit them, versus the Cats had to play them at the G, which Hawthorn play as well as anyone. So it's not just that. Everything was against Geelong and they lost by a point. Everything was there was things against the Hawks and they smashed them. So I'm with you on that. I think the Caddies will be far too good down there. I think the Dogs are going to be fine, mate. They'll get it worked out. It's like they've got a bit of turbulence in the air, but you're so far up in the air, it's not going to affect you. You're not going to crash. You're just going to have to reset and still cruise along. So Smith and Holmes like that. Anything else in this game, or we're happy to move on to the second of the double headers, Harro?
I have here that if the weather is good, that the over total points will be a good play. So, but yeah, just you want to make sure the weather's going to be good. And I think the line's 180. Most Cats games go over that, and the Doggies historically, pretty high scoring games as well. So, I've got that down there, but just got to make sure the weather's going to be spot on before you do anything there.
Absolutely. All right. Is it the Sydney Derby or the Battle of the Bridge? I don't know what they're calling it at the moment up there, but it doesn't matter. The fact is, I like this game because these teams actually hate each other and they do a great job of promoting it. The rivalry, I think, has been driven by GWS, but Sydney's on board. Swannies are in far better shape, as we know, $1.30. GWS are $3.75 if you like them for the upset. The line is 4 goals. It's 23.5 points. Really keen to hear your angles here, Harro. This is... we want to grow the game in New South Wales and we're not even giving their derby its own game on a Friday night. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah. You'll definitely... Hey, Wally, I'll tell you what, if you're getting pretty upset about these games, you got to get yourself multiple screens, mate. You can watch both at once.
I have, Harro.
Oh, you've got it set up. All right.
My wife's got a problem when I rip one TV off a wall and bring it down into the lounge room, then I've got to drill it back up. So, mate, we've got screens everywhere.
Now, you got to have 2 TVs up next to each other on the wall, mate.
I know. I don't quite have that set up, but don't worry. I've got enough. I've got the 2 screens going, and the superior game gets the big screen, and the smaller one obviously goes on the secondary, and we flip between them. But mate.
All good, mate. Yeah, this one, the Giants. The Giants, they looked a lot better on the weekend off their big break, and we have noticed that teams are playing really well off their big break. So that wasn't surprising, and they also had some players come back. But you got to look at what they played, and the Tigers are really battling right now. They're clearly going the worst in the comp at the moment. I think that's pretty obvious to everyone. And look, they beat them by 9 goals too. It's not a huge margin of the way the Tigers are going. Consider that Port also beat them by 7 goals at the SCG, and Port aren't very good either. So I'm not overrating the Giants and thinking that they're back in a big way based off beating the Tigers. Everything else in the Giants season has them in that sort of 10 to 14 range, and I don't really see any reason to think that they're outside of that sort of level. And the Swans... to my mind, they're a clear top 2. I think we've got a clear top 2 at the moment, then a little gap, and the Brisbane Lions and the Swannies are that top 2 side. And if you listen to the coaches' press conferences, Dimmer actually said exactly that. And so I just don't think a 4-goal line for the Swannies at home is enough here. So I'll be playing that again. We're going to follow up with our good mates, the Swannies, and have another bet on them. So very happy to be, backing a team that's got very few issues and just in great form at the moment. You still I know that the Giants, they did get a few back on the weekend, but you look at the players who still are going to be missing from their team this week, and it's Cornelio, who picked up a fresh injury. Cadman's back out again after playing one good game. Taylor, who's their best key defender and probably just about the best in the comp. Green and Kelly. So it's still a lot, Rolly. It's still a lot. And the Swannies, they just missed Errol Goulden. That's it. So on the possession side of things, just be a little bit careful around your Whitfield and Callaghan, who have historically got the attention from the Swans and kept them very low in recent years. So be mindful of that. Another game that, if the weather's good, I like the over total points, with both sides playing this run and gun, high handball sort of style. It should allow for plenty of scoring, mate.
Nice, mate. Nice. All right, good stuff. We'll move on to the Saturday games now, Harro. And first up on Saturday, well, we've got Gold Coast v Essendon up at the Gold Coast. I think Gold Coast will be happy to get home, have a lesser opponent here. I know Essendon had their win, but I think this is going to bring them back to earth hard up there. Gold Coast $1.10, Essendon $8.90 is as big as you can get. The line's 42.5. Yeah, it's a big line. It's a big line, but I'm interested to hear whether you think they can cover it.
I've got some thoughts on the Dons here, mate. I didn't quite get to them last week, but I did sort of say to you last week, Wally, that the Dons weren't going as badly as perhaps everybody assumed, and I think the signs were there. I didn't back them, but the signs were there, and I wasn't really that surprised at what they did on the weekend. And if you look at what I wanted to relate this to what Essendon were doing last year before they got all of their injuries, okay? And if you just cut the cord at round 13 last year, the Dons were 6-6 with an 85% record. Where everybody this year's kind of asking themselves, are the Dons they're going to be bottom 2 or 3 and be like terrible? Well, now that they're going back to this style that they played at the start of last year, with very few injuries compared to what they had, I think that that's the level that the Dons should be considered. A team that's going to be in this same sort of range as your mid-table, your 10 to 14 type area. They're not in that bottom bracket, I think. And I think they showed that last week. So I'm actually going to be happy enough to start backing the Dons, but when I think that they've got the right matchup. And this isn't the right matchup, because right now you've got the Gold Coast Suns off back-to-back losses with Petrarca and Humphrey coming back into the team. And actually, if you looked at their performance against the Swans, I don't think many teams are actually going to be running the Swans really close right now. So we're really they did push them a fair bit and made them work for it. So it was no disgraceful effort, and Dimmer was happy with their effort too. So I think the Suns at home, I don't really want to be opposing them. I don't really want to be opposing Essendon with a huge start, giving a huge start like that, because I think they're being underrated by the market. So we'll probably leave that alone. But there's a couple of areas that I do like here. Archie Roberts, mate. His line's 27.5, and he's coming off 37 and 42. Like, they are feeding this boy the footy, and he's doing a good job. So there's no reason that they won't continue to do that. And the other guy I wanted to bring up was Mac Andrew. Did you catch any of him on the weekend, Wally?
Oh, no, I was otherwise. What's the best way to put it? I was busy, Harro. I was, yeah. No, that was in that middle part of the afternoon where I was trying to put in some good pub work before the Hawks game, I believe. So nice. Well, Autumn Glow was running those sort of areas.
Lovely. They actually threw him into the ruck, threw him forward a bit, and mate, he's got that much talent. This guy, he was really exciting. So I expect them to keep trying to develop him in different roles and get him engaged, and get him probably the football more. So have a look at him. But Archie Roberts is the guy here. And outside of that, I haven't found a hell of a lot else that I'm willing to play just yet. But I'm sure there'll be more as we get closer.
Yep. And as we say, keep an eye on the socials. Harris, he put 4 SGMs up over the weekend on X, and 3 of them got the chocky. So keep an eye on the socials for more in that. Okay, the next game, the blockbuster under the lid at Marvel, Hawthorn v Port Adelaide. The Hawks are $1.11. The Port are not big enough at $8.14. The line's 42.5, which isn't big enough. As somebody that's watched both of these teams, will watch one of them twice a week. Because I watched the replay, Harro, because I'm a nuffy. But then watched enough of that. And just a disruptive week for Port, and I feel bad and just all of that. But, perfect conditions under the lid. This will be just going to be a tough game for Port, mate.
Yeah, this will be carnage, mate. I'm that 40-point line, sorry, but Hawks will be beating that all day long, I reckon. So I wanted to have a look at who, I like looking who's been coming through a tougher form line. And Port, the best opposition that Port have played are the Saints so far this year. They've had an incredibly soft run so far, Port. And the fact that they're only sort of 2 wins, and I think they might not have many more wins left in them for the rest of the year. And they're actually $2.50 to finish in the bottom 4. I think that's a good area to be, Wally, just in terms of a futures bet. Because I think that they've played a lot of their most winnable games, and now they go into a long stretch of games that look beyond them. And this is one of them, mate. And you flip it over to Hawthorn, and the Hawks have played basically all sort of top 10 looking teams apart from one game, and that was against the Bombers, and they won that by 62 points. It was actually 8-14. And I think the Bombers and Port are a similar level. I probably think the Bombers will finish ahead of Port, actually. So, and now they have to travel, Hawthorn with an extra day's break. Very keen on the Hawks, mate. Now, outside of that, Butters, his line's 30, and I don't think Hawks are going to be allowing a lot of players to get 30 against them this year, because I think the Hawks are going to monopolise the footy a fair bit. And if the Hawks have got the footy, it means the opposition don't. We saw that with the Doggies actually on the weekend in that Hawthorn Doggies game, and one of the punters mentioned that I left Matt Kennedy out of the same game multi, and that was pretty much the reason why, because I thought that 27 is a lot of disposals when you consider that the Hawks are going to have the control of the footy all night. And look, no player for the Doggies got over 26. Bont got 26, that was the most, with Kennedy the next on. With Sanders 25. So I just think anytime I'm getting a player with a line of 30 against the Hawks, it's going to be a tough. It's going to be a struggle to get there. So happy to play that. The other guy I like here, Wally, and you know all about this bloke, is Ginny, and he's just killing it at the moment. And it's just been so impressed. He's got a bit of a new role. He's ranging up and down the ground a fair bit rather than sort of playing closer to goal. And he had the 28 on the weekend, and he's really feeding off those Hawthorn backmen as a bit of a release player as they're coming out of the back line. They're hitting him up a lot. And, so I'm happy to play Ginny, mate, as he's before the market really catches up to what he's up to.
Yeah, another watch here, Harro. What I will say is just keep an eye out after teams. Marby or Chol's going to miss a bit of footy now. It's early in the year. If you're gonna lose a key forward for 4 to 6 weeks, you want to lose him in the first half of the season, not in the back half. We know that, but that means that a player will likely come in for him. I'm hoping it's Kalshadir, but whoever comes in for him, they're going to want to cement a spot, and it's going to be a big thing. So I think that a lot of these players, any player at the moment in Hawthorn that's coming into the team, have a look at them, have a look at whether it's goals, whether it's disposals, because this is now like a Sydney is, like a Brisbane is. It's a bit of a fight for spots. People are going to want to be a part of it. So key forward spots aren't the easiest to get, and especially with Kelch hasn't made it in. So if he comes in, he's one I'll be looking at for a couple of goals, Harro. But that's a watch on selection. So we'll wait and see what they do there. And I would say that Jack Gunston's Jack Gunston, and he'll find goals. And think about Jack Gunston against a weak back line. and the delivery he gets with perfect conditions, I think we know what's going to happen. So they're two call-outs for me, Harro. All right, we move on. Adelaide St Kilda. I'm fascinated by this because the Saints did a very un-St Kilda thing. I've got a couple of very good friends that are St Kilda fans. I was chatting to one of them, mate, I do honest beers with, and I said to him, I go, mate, I feel like you turned a little corner here. I know it was only Port, but what you did is you won a game on the road where it looked like they'd come right back into it, and it was a very un-St Kilda thing to do, was hold on and win that and just pull back away. So I don't know. So I'm interested. They stay there for the week. Jack Higgins now loves Adelaide. He's a big fan of South Australia. That's what you do, Harry. You bag something, you apologise, and then you do a deal with the government. That's basically tourism. So you do. You got to do the wrong thing, apologise. Like Ginnivan and Kenny Hinkley, they're probably mates now. That's what happens. Anyway, Adelaide's $1.40. You can get as big as $1.48. St Kilda, you can get $2.93. The line's 15.5, Harrow. Can the Saints go back-to-back in Adelaide, or do we just think the Crows will be too strong?
I do think that there's a big gap between Port Adelaide and Adelaide. And Port actually had the 22 scoring shots against the Saints, 21. I felt like that the Port Adelaide after quarter time were the better side and controlled that game. They were very unlucky with the way that things went with the umpiring and whatnot, and had the more scoring shots. And so I think that's a concern for the Saints as they play a big step up now in the Crows. So I'd be happy enough to be siding with the Crows here, mate. Not that I think the Crows are going unbelievably well. They're not hitting the levels that they were at last year, but they're doing enough, and I think that they're slowly improving. And at home, that's where I want to be. I want to be with the Crows, mate. So I'm happy to bet there. Outside of that, I've been watching Naz really closely, and he's no player in the AFL has been getting more attention from the opposition than Naz. Yet, in his last 3 games, he's still gone 27, 29 and 28. And his line's 27.5. And the Crows, I don't think that they're going to be putting like a dedicated hard tag on Naz because I haven't really seen the Crows do it with anyone in recent memory. And considering how much attention Naz has been getting, I think that he's a good bet at that 27.5. He's been over it the last 2 weeks with 27 the week before that with a lot of attention. And I actually think he's got a really big one in him coming soon. And so it could be this week. And he's $4.60 to have 34. So, I'm happy to play that. The other guy I've been...
Just stop you there. Where 34... Is that at like one of the books that are offering 34, or is that's not a tab? I think
it was at Sportsbet actually.
Okay, great. Because just a reminder, outside of Thursday and Friday, Harrow, no more +1. Just a reminder to the punters: if you think you're getting one shaved off your disposals on Saturday or Sunday, you're not anymore with the Green Cafe. Just so we know.
Yep. Yeah, definitely want to be aware of that, punters. So there's another guy for the Crows who I think gets a really good matchup here. We've seen the Saints concede plenty to backs like they have in previous years, and that's happening this year at the moment. And it's Malira, and his line's 22.5, and he's coming off 27 and 25. And so there's a guy that I like as well, mate.
I like him too, mate. Good user of the ball too. All right.
Yeah.
Moving on, Harrow, we move into the Sunday games, and as I said, they all overlap, which is frustrating for us from a punting perspective. But the first game we've got to run up to, that's an easy one. It's North Melbourne, Richmond, so you've got plenty of time to get this one on. North Melbourne's $1.30, Richmond's $4. I think that these two have now separated. The line's 25.5. They've spent the last sort of 3 or 4 years in that bottom 4 with West Coast sort of fighting for the last spot, but North appear to have turned the corner and elevated, as they should be, because they've got a far more experienced list, and they've been doing it for a while. But I don't know what to make of the Tiggies, Harrow, because I know that they've got a lot of injuries with these players, and they have little bursts where they look good, and it's really exciting. And it's a club you'd love to be a part of. And Richmond fans shouldn't be worried because they've got so much talent, and it's a place people are going to want to go. They play at the G. They train at Punt Road. It's getting redeveloped. Like, they've got all the draft capital to bring a Butters or someone over. So there's a lot of positivity. But this year looks already like, for lack of a better word, but fucked.
Yeah. I think the thing with the Tigers, everyone thought they had a great year last year because they won 5 games. But the reality of it was, mate, that yes, they won 5 games, but they still had look, I'm just double checking because I don't want to get my facts wrong, Wally. They had a percentage of 65, which was the second worst in the AFL. And 65 is a bottom sort of side percentage. And look, I think that they barely scored as well, and they're having the same problem this year. It's probably just got a bit worse, and probably if you put Nank and Lynch back in the side, they'd be going a lot better. But you can't do that. So they're really struggling at the moment, Richmond. I don't expect it to get any easier for them this week. The North are going really well. I don't really trust North to win by more than what the line is, though. You just know, I don't know, 25 points. They haven't put many sides away, have they, over the years? So 25.5 I think is about right. Where I did look, it was the first thing that came to my mind when this game came up was like, does Sheasel have a crack at his own record after having 54 against the Tigers in the same game last year? Look, he's going really well at the moment. He's got 4 out of his 5 games. He's had 30 plus. So I wouldn't mind having a little bet on Sheasel to get 40 at $6 here, mate. I think that's right in play with this matchup. Where else did I look? I expect it to be a bit more of a competitive game than what the Tigers had against the Giants. And when the Tigers play in competitive games, they go low scoring. And the line here is at 180.5, mate. And so I'm happy to roll this one back, even though it lost against the Giants, and play that again, because also we know that North have really been working hard on their defence. And so happy to play with that. The other guy that I like here is Colby McKercher at 27.5, and maybe even play him for a higher line as well. Coming off a couple of low ones, but against really tough matchups, in good conditions here against a Tigers side that allow plenty to his type, I'd be happy to play that. And just in general, we've got the team conceding the least disposals in the AFL in North, playing a team that's conceding the 5th most in the Tigers. The Tigers were number 1 in this stat for last year, and it's probably going to trend up towards that position again. So most of my bets here will be centred around looking to find some North players rather than Tigers players, mate.
Yep, absolutely, mate. Makes all sense. She's going absolutely Bruno Nars to try and have 50, whatever it was again. All right, Melbourne, Brisbane. Melbourne's $3.60. Brisbane's $1.36. The line's 21.5. We thought Melbourne were really like an exciting, great side, and then they obviously went and lost to Essendon, who you also have said, Harry, they're not going as bad, so it's not necessarily panic stations. They're in a rebuild. They're not. No Melbourne person thinking they're going to win a flag or anything this year, so it's not the end of the world. How do they go here at home against Brizzy, though?
Yeah, so I sort of think that the D's form, I would describe it as a bit bipolar. They're either putting in amazing performances like beating the Suns by a good margin, or copping a bit of a hiding to the Dons. Things don't get much more volatile than that. So it's a little bit hard to know what you're going to get from the D's, but I don't have their best getting anywhere near the Lions. And the Lions have actually played 3 games in a row against sides that are probably in the Demons sort of section of the ladder. And look, they beat North, who made it really difficult for them in difficult conditions. They still beat them by 26 points. They played the Pies, who were a little bit weakened that night, but they beat them by, 54 points. And also they played one other, just trying to figure that one out. They played another game as well against a similar opposition 3 games ago. Oh, the Saints. And they were too good for the Saints by that 30-odd points as well. And so getting a line of 20.5 here, I just don't have the D's getting within that margin when the Lions have shown 3 games in a row, teams in that bracket of the ladder, they're going beyond that margin. And actually the Lions side is a lot stronger now than what played in those previous 3 games with Andrews back, McCluggage back, and the roll-on effect from that. So really happy to play the Lions at the line. Another one I've got here is Gorney under 21.5, and I gave Gorney a huge rap last week. And I also talked about how a lot of people were tipping him up to go under against Gold Coast because it was a tough matchup. The difference here is that the line in the Gold Coast game was 18.5, where here it's 21.5. And Gorn has 322s this season and a 23. But this is genuinely one of the toughest matchups for rucks. And like the 2 rucks that he's up against are Draper and Fort, both, really experienced good rucks. And I think that Gorney might fall under the 22 here. The other guy that I've found is Zach Bailey to kick goals. Now, he's $1.93 to kick 2. He's done that 4 of his last 5 games. And what I noticed on the weekend with McCluggage back, he only did the 8% in the middle, and the rest of the time he was forward. So he's going to get his opportunities against the D's here, and I like that one, Wally.
I like that a lot, Harro. We love goals on a Sunday arvo. Last game of the round. Well, West Coast Freo. The derby, or the derby as they call it. West Coast Freo, $1.10. West Coast $8.71 is as big as you can get. The line is 42.5, Harro.
Yep. Look, I could only be with Freo at the line. Wasn't overly impressed with them, but I do think on the weekend against the Pies, but I do think getting them back in the better conditions on the faster deck where they can get their ball use going and their key forwards come into the game more is really going to help them, because they do rely on those key forwards for their long down the line sort of stuff and making a contest that way. And in the wet, they were kind of taken out of the game. One thing I'm looking at here is with Big Darcy being out injured, if we can get Luke Jackson to be the solo ruck here, he should have a field day against West Coast. So wait for teams. If they name Jackson as the solo ruck, I think he's going to be a great bet. Freo are the leading contested possession team in the AFL, and West Coast are conceding the 3rd most contested possession. So it sets up really well for the high contest type players. And I've got Sarong here, mate, to get 30, okay? He's done that 4 of his last 6 against West Coast. And if you look at the similar players to Sarong or inside mid, so West Coast are conceding AFL number 1 to inside mid so far this season. I can reel them off. We've got Atkins 30, Smith 34, Butters 30, Aldiu 32, Sheasel 34, Anderson 34. So there's plenty of those similar type players as Sarong getting that 30 plus, and so I'd be happy to have a play in that area, Wally.
Great. So Luke Jackson again, if he's the lone ruck, we want to go over his disposal line and maybe a bit higher. Sarong, regardless, we're playing 30 plus.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, Harro, do you want to play the line, or we just reckon it's a bit too high in the derby?
Look, I'm a bit. I lean. It's a lane. I'm not piling into that one.
Yep.
It's a lane.
Okay.
Basically,
if you got to have a bet in the game, it's Freo line. If you don't need that each scratch, then just leave it alone.
Yeah, that's the one.
Good stuff. Beautiful. All right, Harro, mate, you've been great as always. Really appreciate that. We've got to get your best bet of the round.
Yeah, and I'm going to go back to my old favourite, the Swannies, to win by 4 goals, Wally. They're doing the job for us consistently, and I'm going to go back to the well there, mate.
Harro, I don't often do this, but my best bet is Hawthorn to cover the line under the lid on Saturday, and my schooner line is, we'll just say 7.5, I think, Harro.
Yeah.
Nothing too crazy.
I like that one too. That would be
week.
My second best. So
yes, there you go. Have a great week. Enjoy the footy. dedicate Friday night to watching both and see if we come out of it going, oh, do you know, it was better than expected, or if it's a train wreck like we think with the two games on at the same time. So I'm keeping an open mind on this one, Harro. Mate, you've been great as always. I'll see you next week.
Hooroo.
Imagine what you can be buying instead. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.